Hey, what's up, everyone? Getting a little fancy today. Hey, what's up, everyone? Getting a little fancy today. Turn that off. Just experimenting with some new streaming software to get ready for the masterclass next week. So there might be a few glitches here and there. Speaking of which, did everybody get the email this morning? My email provider was being really weird. It was supposed to send something out at 11, and then it looked like it didn't, and then I tried to send it again like 45 minutes later, and it still looks like it didn't. So let me know if you guys got it, because it didn't say that it was sent. It said it was not sent. And let me know that you can hear and see me. Because like I said, I'm streaming from a new service going through YouTube, but I'm not streaming directly inside of YouTube. Jack says he did not get the email. Okay. Yeah, that has nothing to do with the streaming service that I'm using. I don't know why my email provider didn't send it out. Paul got it about 10 minutes ago. Nick didn't get one. Okay. Well, hopefully that problem will not continue after today, because that'll make the masterclass horrible. All right, let's check in with everybody. Close a couple windows. Sergio, what's up? Jack. Ernst, I've got the... Rob, I don't know what time it is there for you, but I'm guessing that was 8:45, so like 20 to 30 minutes ago. Yeah, that was the second one I sent. Sergio, what's up? Jack, in the tune Ask Me Now, a melodic analysis of the first two bars yields C major, B major, B flat, A major. How does that translate into improvisation of those bars? Yeah, that's a great question. Let me just quickly read through some of these, make sure everybody can hear and see me, and then we'll start there. Paul, what's up? Nick, hey. Ask Me Now is a nice tune. Would love a small analysis also. Awesome. Stephen, good to see you. Rob, hey. Ernst, everything is reversed in the image. Glad we're doing this. And I believe I know how to change that. I don't know if I can do it midstream. Hopefully I can. How about now? Let me know if that looks straight to you. Did not get an email, got the email, no email, got the email for tomorrow. I don't think I've sent an email out. I mean, I've given a heads up about tomorrow, but not the link to it. Stephen got it. Yeah, okay, California, that makes sense. Right, 8:45, yeah. Miguel, good to see you, man. Paul, Stephen and Paul, nice, perfect, cool, images corrected. Okay, awesome. I just have to remember, let me double check that setting. So mirror camera off. Okay, cool. That'll be helpful for tomorrow. Better. I thought it said butter. It's because I haven't had enough coffee yet today. Now I'm ready. All right. And boom. Except I have to scroll down a little bit so you guys can see me around that. Now I don't have to pin comments. I can just put them up on the screen, which is pretty cool. Except you can't quite see me perfectly. So I love that. Okay. Yeah, ask me now. For those who don't know the tune, you might want to grab the real book. I think it's in the real book. If it's not, you can just Google "Now's the Time" lead sheet. Really cool, very hip monk tune. Certainly not as commonly known as Blue Monk or Straight No Chaser, Around Midnight, you know, some of his more classics, but great tune to know. Jack says real book too, or again, just Google it. Ask Me Now lead sheet. It starts off with this descending, chromatic descending 2/5s. So G minor, C7, G flat minor, B7, F minor, B flat 7, E minor, A7. Okay. It seems like a relatively complex tune on the surface, and in some ways it kind of is, but in a lot of ways it's quite simple. This is effectively, you could kind of think of this tune as being, I mean, it's in the key of D flat major, and it's sort of starting on that that flat 5 and descending down, pretty similar to like what you would expect with, you know, Cole Porter. Night and day. Usually he plays it as a diminished when we get to the flat 3 diminished down to the 2/5/1. So it's kind of related to that. You could argue that this is dominant movement, right? Because you could say that this is C7, which is tritone subbing us to B7, which is tritone subbing us to B flat 7, okay, which is tritone subbing us to A7, which is tritone subbing us to A flat 7, which is the dominant to the tonic. It's obviously also related to chromatic movement because these are just chromatic 2/5s. So that's kind of the harmonic analysis of the opening figure in the A section. The bridge is a little quirky. We won't necessarily talk about the bridge today, but let's just go over this because this is what Jack's talking about. The melody here is absurdly simple. And again, it's a great clue, as I'm obsessively always harping on, it's a great clue that all the legends were hearing and thinking about and using triads. The melody is straight up major triads. C major. Like no quadratonics, no chromaticism, no nothing, just okay. C major. That is over the 2/5, G minor to C major. I can't sing that high. That's just the root note of a B major triad. So we're moving down a chromatic step, half step. Just like the 2/5 moves down. Instead of playing the whole triad a half step below, Monk changes it. It's like think of it almost like a call and response. He resolves to the root note of the B triad and then leaps up an octave. Okay. Moves down another chromatic step, another half step, same pattern. Okay. The last 2/5 last twice as long, Jack. I'm guessing you know that because you're asking about the tune. the actual 2/5, the E flat minor, A flat 7, is twice as long, and now we're getting into some quadratonic type play. Right? To me, that feels very much like melodic do and question mark re. Okay, so one thing you could do for improvising over this, if you want to really stick it, inside the melody, is just play with basic triads during the opening section. No quadratonics. I didn't do anything fancy here. That was a leading tone right at the end. That was the fanciest thing I did. Okay. Now it gets a little bit more advanced, but that's basically it, right? That's the opening segment. How could we think about this in terms of quadratonics if you want to? Well, it's almost kind of like he's condensing every 2/5 down to just the root structure 5 triad. So you could either argue that he's playing C triad over G minor. That's fine. We could think that way. So this is C major over G minor to C major over C7, down a half step. Right? That's allowable. Or you could just think like it's just a condensed thing. It's just a condensed 2/5. He's just treating it as though it were C major, B major, B flat major, A major, A flat major. Even though his left hand, right, the harmony, shell voicing, he's moving it around. Okay. He plays, if you listen to his recording, he's playing dyad versions of basic shell voicings, 1/3 or 1 flat 7, to make sure that we are hearing the 2/5. But he's not melodically implying the 2/5. He's melodically really just implying the dominance. Okay. So if we want to expand those major triads out and think of them as dominant chords, so I just say, yeah, dominant chords with quadratonics. So just add attention to. Quick rule of thumb, it's not always 1000% true. Sometimes there are variations, but usually when I'm dealing with a tritone sub type idea, which this kind of is, I usually fall back on tension natural 2, not flat 2. Okay. Okay. Is that making sense so far, Jack? Or anybody else? Anyone else have any questions about this little analysis I'm breaking down here? Hopefully it makes sense. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and loop these 2/5s and just improvise over it a little bit so you can hear this in action. I'm doing that twice as long. Yeah. Wait, that's not right either. I was right the first time. Jack, this makes sense. Awesome. Ernst, would you say that C7 is a sub 7? I'm not sure what you mean by sub 7. Can you clarify what that means? Jack, natural 2 on C, then flat 2 on the B major, and so on. I don't know that I would do that. I suppose you could. I mean, that's the fun thing about dominance is you can kind of get away with anything. If you hear that flat 2, then by all means go for it. The whole thing feels very parallel to me. So I would likely keep the same quadratonic happening and just lower it a half step every time. So that would yield the natural 2 each time. But yes, so in general, Ernst. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm mixing up different questions. Hang on. Let me come back to Jack's question. Natural 2 on the C, then flat 2 on the B major, and so on. So I'm using natural 2s this whole time. That's what I was just playing. If you want to experiment with flat 2s, you can. In general, tritone subs, I find that the natural 2 works a little bit better. But, you can kind of use your ear for that. They both could theoretically work. The other thing that you might want to do if you're seriously considering it is just go and listen to Monk and pick out 1 or 2 melodies of how he plays over the section when he's improvising, and see what he's using. Melodically, like the actual melody, he's very obviously building it just on pure triads, which is great. That informs us that he's hip to triads and that we can use just pure triads and get some very Monk influenced ideas from that. But because his melody is so sparse, he doesn't give us much more than that. He does give us over the A flat dominant that it is definitely a natural 2. Right. Later in the tune, in the bridge, I mentioned that it gets a little more complex. There, he dances between a natural 2 versus a sort of a different triad, but a kind of a tension flat 2. Over the same chord, but he shows us melodically there's 2 different ways to play over this chord, and they are very different. Yeah, I would recommend that you start with just all natural 2s and just get the flow happening, and then if you feel the need to move towards tension flat 2s, that's cool. Video resolution is low. Thank you, Rob. I don't know if this will break up and make the stream stop even more, but I just went in and changed it. It was at 720 and I just upped it to 1080. So hopefully that is better. I'm not really sure why it would break up. I don't know. How long are the freezes for, if you don't mind me breaking protocol and asking you guys questions? And while I'm waiting for those answers to come in, Ernst, you said that on every tritone sub, you use the natural 2. So 5 seconds. Okay. So not a super short period of time. That's a bummer. Thank you guys for telling me. Sorry, I'm just thinking about the masterclass. Does it break up when, like in previous weeks, when I'm not using this software, when I'm just going straight into YouTube? I would love to know. Video looks better now. Awesome. Thanks, Rob. Yeah, let me know if I tend to break up at all in previous weeks or the same amount or less than I am today. All right, let's come back to Ernst's question while I'm waiting. No breakups in previous weeks. Man, what a bummer. There was 2 reasons I bought this software service. One was because I wanted to be able to put questions at the bottom for us. No, 3 reasons. One, I wanted to be able to put the questions at the bottom instead of pinning it at the top of the chat box because I just thought it looked cooler. The second one was that countdown intro, which I don't care about so much for us, but I thought would be super professional looking for the masterclass next week. And the third one was because I thought I was going to be able to show like presentation slides in the video. And I can, except I had to buy a separate monitor to do it, which I did. But that monitor, I thought it was going to work with my laptop. I just got it last night. It doesn't work with my laptop. So maybe I should just return this software and not worry about it. Yeah, so let's come back to our next question. So there's a couple of ways to think about this, Ernst. Are you looking at the chord chart, the lead sheet right now? Let me know that you're looking at it. Again, if you don't have a copy of it, you can just go on Google and find it. There's a few different ways to understand what's happening in that opening section. Yes, you're looking. Awesome. So you see that it's G minor, C7, G flat minor, or F sharp minor, B7, F minor, B flat 7, E minor, A7. It's just descending in chromatic movement. So one way to understand that is to ignore all of the minor chords. Just think about dominant. We want to get to D flat major. That's our tonic chord. It doesn't actually, Monk doesn't take us to D flat right away. Yeah, I was looking forward to the 2 monitors, but unfortunately it doesn't connect to mine, which is kind of a huge pain. I won't go off and start complaining about whatever. Never mind. Back to Monk. Ignore the minor chords and just look at the dominant chords, right? We have C7, B7, B flat 7, A7, A flat 7. Now pretend he doesn't take us there right away. He takes us on a sideway path before taking us there, but let's pretend that he resolves us to D flat right here, because that is ultimately where this chord progression is heading. And we do eventually get there. He just takes us, he inserts a little bit of an extension before taking us there. So if we pretend that this is C7, B7, B flat 7, A7, A flat 7, D flat, then what we could do is boil the whole thing down and say that this is A flat 7 to D flat major, 5-1, right? Which means that all the preceding dominants, every one of them is a tritone sub that takes us to the next dominant, which is a tritone sub that takes us to the next, to the next, to the next. So the A7, you can understand the A7 because it's the tritone that takes you to the dominant, right? Which means you can understand the B flat 7 as the tritone sub that takes you to A7, that takes you to A flat 7, that takes you to D flat. Which means you can understand the B7 as the tritone sub that takes you to B flat, that takes you to A, that takes you to A flat, that takes you to D flat. Which means, to your question, you can understand C7 as the tritone sub that takes you to B, which is the tritone sub that takes you to B flat, which is the tritone sub that takes you to A, which is the tritone sub that takes you to A flat, which eventually resolves us to D flat. Again, I recognize that he doesn't actually resolve to D flat yet. What he does next is a little bit of a deceptive cadence. He basically takes us through this same process again. Tritone sub, right to the 6th chord. 2, flat 2, right? Tritone sub, there's the 1 chord final. So it's a long roundabout way to get us there, but he's just tritone subbing through dominant after dominant after dominant after dominant. Like every dominant is a tritone sub that takes you to the next one, which then becomes the tritone sub that takes you to the next one. It's literally the circle of fifths, but instead of moving in fifths, the whole thing is tritone subs, right? So this is the circle of fifths: C7, F7, B flat 7, E flat 7, A flat, D flat, G flat, B, E, A, D, G, C. That's one octave of the circle of fifths. But if you tritone sub every other chord, you just end up with that's one octave of the circle of fifths, but using tritone subs to make the whole thing chromatic, which in many ways is something that Monk is just a genius of by unlocking that and bringing that into the jazz tradition. Like that's a pretty common sound to hear today, but back, 60, 70 years ago, when you were listening to the Great American Songbook and everything was like Broadway show tunes or the blues, we didn't really hear that all that much, but Monk heard it in his head and kind of introduced us to it. This whole tune is just like chromatic half step down, chromatic over and over and over, and then he'll jump up somewhere and then he'll just keep chromatically walking down. He'll jump up and he'll keep chromatically walking down. Very, very cool tune. There's a lot of simplicity inside of it. If you spend some time with it, it's just not evident on the surface because it sounds very complex. Ernst, that's clear now, but then would you use the flat 2? No, in fact, the A flat 7 is the only dominant where he specifically lets us hear a quadratonic or a non-triad note, and he specifically plays natural 2, right? A flat and B flat. So he lays it out right there for us in the melody that it should be a natural 2. Again, can you do a tension flat 2? Yeah, you certainly could. You could. You're just not inside the personality of Monk's melody anymore, so you're not borrowing what he was hearing, which doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just means that it's, breaking the mold a little bit of the blueprint that he gave us, which as musicians, we have the freedom to do that. It becomes a question of, are you doing it because you want to, because you hear something that you think is better than what Monk heard? Or are you doing it maybe out of necessity because you can't keep up with something because you haven't practiced it enough? My feeling is we should always attempt, at least at the beginning, to try and follow the blueprint that our legends gave us. So if Monk is using a tension natural 2 in the melody, I think it's worth learning to improvise with that. And then if you explore and decide you like something more, then by all means, you can make that conscious decision to change it. And for anyone who's interested, the next chord at the end is not D flat major. That is where it's headed, but he delays it, and instead he goes to what I think of as our Monk dominant. Right? B7, flat 5. Okay. That sharp 11 or flat 5 is not some wacky tension note. It's not a passing note. It's not a leading tone. He resolves to it. Right? It's just boom right there. could argue that he's playing dominant 9 arpeggios. I would argue that he's playing quadratonic. That's a B flat minor triad. Tension flat 6. Again, it depends on how you look at the picture. It's the same pitches, but for me, I want to know how can I make phrases based on the notes he's using without just arpeggiating things. Right, so that's B flat minor, tension 6. If I want to, I can add in, our other standard tension notes, tension 2 and 4. Again, Monk dominance, which walk down chromatically to G minor, which keeps walking down. That's where he changes over the A flat jack. I mentioned that earlier. I now understand that all the 7 chords are subs in a way. So natural 2 and an A flat 7, also natural 2 because of the melody. Yeah, a little bit of both. You've been hanging with me long enough. I'm sure you've heard me talk about that there's sort of 2 generic ways that are worth developing to improvise over a tune. One way is the more standard approach, even though we look at it differently, the standard approach of just looking at harmony and understanding, we have our triads and our quadratonics, our vocabulary that we know we can use over any given chord. So I know that over a dominant, if it's functioning a certain way, I have 1 or 2 or 3 or 7 options that are at my disposal, not intellectual, but in my ear, in my mind, in my heart, and in my hand. All 4 elements have to work together if we want to be able to use this stuff improvisationally. That's one way. The other way is to just look at the melody, which is usually my preferred method, right? That's what I'm primarily trying to help everybody get to that point. Learning to do it based on the harmony is easier because you can just look at a chord, right? You're looking at the lead sheet and it says A flat 7 and you're like, oh, I know what to do over an A flat 7. Here's an idea. Versus being able to analyze the melody, you actually have to sit and look at the melody. Because it's not, the quadratonic is not going to be written in the real book. So it takes some time to learn how to think that way. But that's my preferred method because the personality of the tune is primarily hiding inside the melody. That's why Blue Monk and Straight No Chaser sound totally different, even though they're both blues, versus Billy's Bounce versus, Now's the Time versus Au Prévave. Like there's so many different blues that sound so different, even though they're all the same chord progression, because the personality is really hiding inside the melody more than the harmony. There is some personality in the harmony for sure, but it's more of a foreground, background kind of an idea. The melody is the foreground. Right? Here's an interesting question for you. I used to ask this when I was an adjunct instructor at NYU. I always used to ask my students this question. Close your eyes for a minute. Picture the Mona Lisa. Obviously, we can't have a conversation, so I can't hear you, but close your eyes, picture the Mona Lisa. and describe out loud what you see in your mind, right? Um, Take a quick second. I'm going to tell a very short story with this, but try this activity out loud. It might feel a little bit cheesy, but speak out loud. What is the Mona Lisa a painting of? What do you see in your mind when you think about the Mona Lisa? When I was at NYU, and I used to do this because I could talk to people face to face, the generic answer was it's a woman. She's wearing a dress. She has like this, long straight hair. She has like a funny look on her face. Yada yada yada, whatever. My follow-up question is always, can you really see that image in your mind? Okay, cool. My follow-up question was always, what's the background a painting of? Like, what's behind her? The majority of people I asked that question to, and you might fall into this category, there's no shame in this, would literally just say, I have no idea. Because most people don't. This is like the most famous image in the world. Most people haven't the slightest clue what's behind the Mona Lisa. Of the people who did know, who didn't say, I don't know, the vast majority of them, the most detailed answer I could get out of them was it's some type of outdoor nature scene. Very rarely did I meet somebody that was able to tell me what that nature looks like. Right? Is it a rainforest? Is it a beach? Is it a mountain? Most people had not the slightest clue. This is like arguably the most famous image in the world. Like, ask anybody about the Mona Lisa, everyone knows what it is. But 40% of the painting is the background, and nobody knows what it is made of. What's even weirder than that is that if somebody photoshopped a different background into the painting, every single person would immediately know the difference. So the background versus the foreground. Mona Lisa is the foreground. That's what everyone's paying attention to. That's the melody, right? The background is kind of under the radar. Nobody really notices it, but if you change it, people will recognize that it's different. That's a good way to think about melody versus harmony. The melody is really like what the picture is all about. The harmony, the left hand, the chord progression, is very important, but it's a little bit less important than the melody is because nobody really remembers it. And yet it's easier to analyze and talk about and teach, which is why the majority of jazz education is built on analyzing the background and just sort of hoping that the foreground, the Mona Lisa, takes care of herself. To me, we should really be focusing on the Mona Lisa, on the woman, analyzing that, learning to think about the melody of tunes. And then we also want to understand how to control the background too, because maybe I do want her floating in outer space or in a rainforest. Like, there's nothing wrong with improvising based on the background, but it is the background, right? It is secondary to the foreground. That's why you have right, Cheryl, that's a blues tune. Now's the Time is a blues tune. Same composer. Same composer, same chord progression. In fact, no, different key. I was about to say, is it the same key? But totally different personalities. Like, they may as well be different styles of music. So if you're only improvising based on the chord progression, then you're not really playing the tune, right? Then you're just playing the background, which is important, but it's not the Mona Lisa. Jack just got the email. Sorry about that. Hopefully, this is a super good lesson for me. I'm so happy that I'm testing this software out today and that the email problem happened today and not tomorrow, because now I know it was supposed to show up at 11. Jack, let me know, wait, who said that yeah, Jack just got the email. Did you get the one that was supposed to go out at 11 a.m., which will say, see you in an hour? Or did you get the one that said, oops, I don't think the previous email sent, I'll see you in 15 minutes. Let me know, because that'll tell me what time I need to send the emails starting tomorrow. John Hendricks wrote great lyrics to this tune. You should check it out. I'm not sure which tune we're talking about. What monk tuner were you just talking about? Ask Me Now, Cheryl, Now's the Time. I'm guessing you're talking about Ask Me Now, but I don't know. I'm super curious. Steven, great analogy. Thanks, man. Ernst, awesome. Maybe I'll bring that up in the masterclass. I used to talk about that analogy all the time, and then I kind of stopped teaching for a while, and I guess I forgot it, but it is a good one. I'll have to come back and see if I can squeeze that in next week. Rob. Oh, I can't. Oh, here we go. In thinking about the harmony, simplify by just focusing on the target chord, C, B, B flat, A flat, then E flat, D, D flat. Use major triads retention too. Yes, except there's also the B7 and the B flat 7 that take us to E flat, right? Which is tritone sub to the dominant, the B flat, then resolves to E flat. This is just one big game of either 5-1 movement, like rule number 1 of dominance, 5-1, or rule number 2, flat 2 dominant to its tonic, right? Dominants are like, it's funny, I never thought about this before, but dominant chords are like dominoes. Once one tips over, you can just stack them and they'll just keep going forever. Some of these are 5-1s, some are flat 2-1s, but they'll just keep going. I've already looped through, I think, beyond a full. Did I go beyond an entire octave already? They're never ending until you force them to end. Okay, that's one of the beautiful things about dominance, and it's one of the things that Monk was really just a genius with, like how to. Monk's genius with dominance is very similar to Barry Harris's genius with diminished chords. He just knew how to control them and make them move in a very angular, quirky way, but that is extremely logical. Basically, everything that I just played is some type of 5-1 or flat 2-1, except the 1 is always running away and the 5 is always chasing after it. And it just makes it feel like it's just moving constantly. Miles got both emails. Awesome. Ernst got both emails. Paul just got both. Jack, Ask Me Now lyrics. Nice. Yeah, very strange. Okay, well, that lets me know with the email situation that I should probably send the emails maybe an hour or two earlier than I normally would. 20 minutes ago, 12:30, so that's an hour and a half after you should have gotten it. So maybe I should send it about 2 hours early. Typos, all tritone. Oh, did I miss a comment? Oh, I think that's you're referring to the comment that I use major triads for tension 2, and tension 2 implies the related 2M chord. Maybe that's what you mean about the tritone sub. Yeah, it sounds like you got the right gist of it. The right gist of it? Is that a thing? No, just the gist of it. I'm confused. My emails came afternoon and you were on now. Yeah, it was something's wrong in the matrix, David. I don't know what happened. The first one was supposed to go out at 11. At 11:45, I noticed it hadn't gone out yet. And so I tried to send another one and that one didn't go out either. So I don't know why the robots hate me today, but they do. Sorry about that. Future reference, as is listed in the dashboard inside the underground, these open office hours are always at noon on the first and third Sunday of every month. Okay. If I'm changing that because I don't feel well, because I'm having a surgery, whatever, I will explicitly email to tell you all differently. But as is stated in the dashboard, it's always at noon, US East Coast time, on the first and third Sunday of every month. If you recall, I actually, when I made that decision to standardize it and not change it every month, I actually stopped emailing, right? I said, like, I'm not going to email you anymore. It's just always the first and third Sunday of every month. It's always at noon. The link is in the underground. And people got very confused and thought that I was canceling open office hours. I wasn't canceling them. I just had standardized it. And then I said, I will start emailing again, just as the reminder. So unless you specifically hear me say otherwise, we will always be at noon on the first and third Sunday of every month. If you ever forget, you can always go into the dashboard in the underground, and it has the date, the time, and the link inside there. So apologies if that was confusing this morning. I actually type out these types of emails the night before just to make sure everything's good to go. So I wrote the email last night, went to bed, woke up, was doing some work, realized the email for whatever reason didn't send like it was supposed to send. Like I schedule it, I write it and schedule it to send out the night before, and I don't know why it didn't do it, but the fact that it did it twice means there must be something wrong with the email provider. Maybe their servers are down. You're welcome. We still have a few minutes left. If anybody has any last minute questions, happy to go over them. Did the, you guys mentioned that I was like freezing up for about 5 seconds at a time earlier. Is that still happening, or is that cleaned up yet? I'm super interested to know. Miles, cleaned up. I'm not breaking up anymore. That's good to know. Oh, we got 2 tunes thrown in. First 2 bars of Beatrice and the bridge of Ask Me Now. Well, there's no way that I can do the bridge to Ask Me Now in 6 minutes, especially if I want to talk about Beatrice. But the one thing I will say is I would encourage you, Jack, first of all, we can talk about it next time for sure, but go and look at it and see what you can analyze on your own between now and then, and pay close attention to those. The second half of the bridge is pretty weird, but the first half is just a couple of 2/5s, right? 2/5-1s, E flat, A7, D flat. Very straight ahead harmonically, but melodically, notice how differently Monk treats the first A flat versus the second. See if you can spot a triad or quadratonic that you could use to get deeper inside that, because Monk is showing you, hey, same 2/5-1, 2 different ways to play it. So that's what I mean about the difference between improvising based on the melody versus the harmony. Try and spot the difference of what Monk is doing, the first A flat 7 versus the second, and use that. Improvise based on that, not based on the chord progression. If you improvise based on the chord progression, you're going to end up with the same sound over both 2/5-1s, which is not what Monk is doing. He's showing us that there's 2 different ways to play over that. So see if you can spot that. Weird, seem to be fewer glitches, but there still were some, because if there are some, I might not use this software tomorrow, but if there are none, I would love to use this software if no other reason, just so I can do that cool countdown clock thing, which I think is super cool. First 2 bars of Beatrice, man, I haven't played that one in ages. Okay, well, the first two bars, yeah, F major, G flat major. Now the question is, how do we want to treat them? Still some glitches. Man, that's a bummer. The melody to the first two bars of Beatrice used common tones C and F, so this would affect my triad choices. Yeah, potentially. Let me think about it. I've never actually analyzed this tune before. So let's see if we can just do a very quick. So anytime I see a sharp 11 and a major 7 over a major 7 chord, right, technically that C note is not happening over G flat, but in general, unless we hear a big key change, it can be helpful to sometimes group melodic notes together, especially when they're in a phrase, to understand what could be happening over a chord when we only have one note happening over it. Oh, actually, no, he does play C. Right? He plays C, B, flat, C. So, I'm going to go ahead out on a limb without pulling up the lead sheet, just based on my memory from this tune, which it's been a while, and say that over the G flat, that this is an F minor chord. I'm sorry, F minor triad. Okay. If we're putting F minor over G flat major, that gives us sharp 11 and the 9. So this is like a G flat major 7, sharp 11, 9. With horrible intonation. Great sound. Over the... Man, intonation is terrible. Over the F major, it kind of appears to me that maybe this is not a major 7, even though I've always played it that way because I've never done a melodic triad analysis of it. So I'm going to think of C and F, both of those notes, as being part of the F major chord and the G flat major chord. Okay. So for C and F, just over F major, there's really only kind of maybe one. I'll show you how there's a second option. It appears not as a major 7, but as a pure major. It looks to me like this is an F major triad. The F6 chord could work, but it might be a little bit too old school, Great American Songbook-y, cheesy. So if you want to use maybe like a 6/9 or an add 2, right here's F major triad. There's an add 2. Or how about, that's like F open A, 3 open 1. So I would use F major tension 2 to F minor tension 4. let's see what happens if we use the blue triad over F major, which would give us F minor. Okay, now, it sounds really cool to me, but we do have to be careful. Over the F major, I'm going to use natural 6. We have 2-4 natural 6. That's the blue triad. That's our melodic triad, sort of 6-note minor scale. F minor, tension 2-4-6. Over the G flat, that tension 6 is going to sound very wrong. So either avoid the natural 6 or switch it to flat 6. Okay. The 2 is also going to sound very wrong, which means either ignore it or switch it to flat 2. There's major. You hear how wrong that is? That's the natural 6 over the G flat. So we have to be very careful about that, which either means just play F minor tension 4 the whole time. If you wanted to get a little bit outside the realm of our standard approach, you could turn this into like a standard pentatonic scale with the flat 7. It just sounds a little flat to me, like decompressed. Not that I would never use it, but is it the prettiest note at my disposal? For me, not so much. It's fine. Not my favorite note, though. Those would be my 2 options. F major tension 2 to F minor tension 4, or just do F minor tension 4 the whole time. And then obviously you would have to move forward when you get to the E flat major. Right off the bat, without doing a full-blown melodic analysis, it kind of seems like it might just be a standard G minor. Yeah, it even resolves to that G note. If you want that sharp 11 sound, which might work kind of nicely over that, you could use tension 2 or just the standard, always safe, always easy G minor tension 4. All right, we got to wrap up. Still some glitches. That's a bummer. Thank you guys for all the feedback. The pauses were fewer and shorter. Audio is fine throughout. Cool. Happy the audio is working at least. If you use F minor over the second bar, would you then use the flat 2 as the quadratonic since the chord is G flat? The primary quadratonic, the primary tension note would be 4, tension 4. Okay. First of all, if we can, we always try and avoid a tension flat 2 over minor triads. It creates some wacky stuff. It implies a dominant chord, a dominant 13 that we're not actually playing. So in an ideal situation, when possible, we avoid it. At least for the primary and secondary. I will use tension flat 2 as my third tension note when necessary. That's when it actually becomes necessary. More importantly, if you use tension flat 2, you're adding the root note, the G flat, which is, again, basically never the primary tension note, almost never, okay? Because you're just adding the chord's root note, which is the least harmonically important, least colorful, least deep sounding note we have access to. Ideally, we want to add the third first, right? 3, 7, 5, 9, 11, 13, root. Root comes at the end when nothing else works or is already there. So ideally, we want to add the third. The third of G flat is B flat. And if you compare B flat to an F minor triad, that's tension 4. That's why it's the primary. You're welcome. Thank you guys again for all the feedback. Maybe I'll see if I can get my money back for this software, streaming software. I was really looking forward to keeping the little question bars at the bottom and to have the countdown clock. I thought that was super hip, but it really only works if people can see me. So I might have to just ixnay it. All right, I'm gonna run. For those of you who are free tomorrow, I'll be starting tomorrow. I'll be online every day from Monday through Sunday at noon for about 30 to 45 minutes. Some days will be Q&A. Some days won't be Q&A. Okay. Tomorrow, I'm just going to give an overview of the whole masterclass. Tuesday, we're going to talk improv. Wednesday's Q&A. Thursday, comping. Friday Q&A, Saturday is melodic triads, how we can put shell voicings and triads together, and then Sunday is a Q&A, and I'll be kind of talking about some different ways people can work with me if they want to. So obviously, I'll give everyone a heads up who's not interested in hearing that spiel. I'll give you guys a heads up so you can log off and not have your time wasted. Awesome. Thanks again for hanging, everybody. I will see some of you tomorrow, and otherwise I'll see you guys in a couple of weeks for our next open office. Happy practicing. Thanks for the great questions.